Hi everybody, Susan Thomas here, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a cluster ring. So today we're going to be making a cluster ring, and it's really fun, a fun way to kind of make a big ring. It's kind of easy and free. You're going to love it. You're going to need some tools and supplies, so let me kind of go through what I've got here so you guys are ready to get started. You're going to need some wire. We're going to start with a 20 gauge wire for the base of the ring and a 24 gauge wire to wrap the beads onto the ring. Then as far as tools and supplies, you'll need a flush cutter, a round nose plier, and a chain nose plier, so just your basic tools. Then you will have to have a ring mandrel. I have mine over here kind of connected to the desk, and I'll be bringing it into the picture when we start using it. As far as beads are concerned, you can kind of decide. I've done this in the past with nuggets and pearls like this, but today I'm going to be using some crystals just because I thought, wow, wouldn't that be fun to make like a really sparkly cluster ring, kind of like a cocktail ring? So cool. And then you'll also need some little spacer beads to put between your beads. Just makes it lay better and look nicer. Okay, so we're going to start out with our 20 gauge wire, and I'm just using a 20 gauge gold plated wire, nothing fancy. So I'm just going to pull about 18 inches of the wire, maybe 2 feet if you're making a larger ring. Doesn't take a lot. You're going to take this 20 gauge wire and you're going to use a large hole pearl in the center. Now, do you have to have a large hole pearl? No. You can get a regular hole pearl, and you can actually use a bead reamer and ream out the center so it fits on 20 gauge wire. Generally speaking, pearls don't fit on 20 gauge wire, so I always grab a large hole pearl just because it's a lot easier for me, especially when making these projects. I don't feel like drilling my pearls, but if you guys don't have one, pearls are very soft and you can drill out your own. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of take that pearl and put it at the center of my wire, and then crisscross the wire underneath. Make sure you guys can see that. So I just kind of almost did like a little X underneath the pearl, and that pearl just sits in the center. So if you're looking at one of these cluster rings, you can kind of see how it kind of lives in the center of the cluster. Next step is really just to make a basic ring, just what we did. If you guys know how to make a basic ring, you'll probably know where we're going. If you don't, just kind of follow along with me. What you're going to do is you're going to come to your ring mandrel and you're going to look at the sizes. Now, I want to make a size 8 ring because these are big rings, and so I want to put it on a bigger finger as opposed to on my ring finger. So that means I'm going to try to make like a size 8 to fit on my pointer or my middle finger. But when you're making these wire rings, they tend to shrink. So you always want to start one size bigger than what you want to end up with. Don't ask me what the physics is behind that. It's just, it is what it is. So we're going to start right here at the 9. I'm going to pop my pearl right there at the 9 and hold it in place while I wrap one wire in front of the pearl 2 times, and then the other wire in back of the pearl 2 times. Thereby, you're basically going to have 4 wraps total around the ring mandrel. Now, I'm just going to pull this tight and then wrap underneath. Oops, let me grab that twist again. I almost lost my twist. There we go. Pull it tight and wrap underneath the pearl just a couple times just to make it stay in place. You can see I already shrunk just a little bit down to about 8.5. So that's ready to pull off the ring mandrel. You can see where that pearl is just kind of held in the center. That's going to give you that space that you need to put the cluster underneath. And then you take the rest of this wire and you wrap it around what is now the ring band or the ring shank. So I'm just going to push that wire through, pull it around, and wrap. And then I push it through again, pull it around and wrap. And then one more time. I always go 3 times, push it through. So I've got 3 wraps right there to finish that, and then you're just going to go underneath and trim off that extra wire, and I will press that down in just a second. Then on the other side, exactly the same thing, pull in the opposite direction. Now you can see one of the things, a lot of people try to wrap these rings when they finish them, they try to poke the wire through. That is definitely not the right way to do it, only because it makes it so much harder on you. So what I do is I actually take my finger and I push, see how I'm almost making like a little U shape in my wire here? And I push the wire through like that. And that makes a really nice tight wrap and a pretty wrap. If you try to poke it through, it's just absolutely almost impossible to do. So push the wire through, grab it on the other side and pull. wrap it around, push the wire through. I'm just taking my time so you guys see that. Push it through and then wrap it around. A lot of times I find if I teach people that little tiny trick like that, all their ring problems go away. Everything that they've been worried about, all the problems they've been having, that was it. Because it kind of makes the ring kind of expand if you try to poke the wire through. And it just makes it a lot harder to finish neatly. Now, all I'm going to do now is take my flesh cutter and trim off the extra wire. And then grab the chain nose plier, which you will be using during this project, and press down the extra wire. And you just want to take it and press kind of in towards those bands that you put around the ring shank and feel like this. I don't know why I close my eyes when I do it, but I just do. And just kind of squeeze and make sure that that little piece isn't going to hurt you when you put it on. And then bring this back up onto the ring mandrel and pull it all the way up to the size you wanted. I was going for a size 8. So hopefully, yeah, I just barely got it. I'll tell you I was close. There we go. So essentially now you just have a little ring base to get started with. And it'd be kind of goofy if this was your ring because you see how far that bead sticks up right now. But we're gonna make a cluster all the way around the outside using my crystals. So pop that back on there just like so and get ready to do the next step. So step 2, I know that was a lot to get to step 2, wasn't it? All right, so step 2 is to take a couple feet of your 24 gauge wire. Do not recommend doing this with less than 24 gauge wire because it kind of needs the structure. 24 gauge wire is a 0.5 millimeter, and just anything thinner probably isn't going to hold up very well. All right, so then to get this attached to the ring, what you're going to do is kind of find your center point, come to the base of the ring, and wrap one time in both directions. Ta-da! It's attached. And so now all you have to do is find some pretty beads and start stringing them. So these are my crystals. So I'll just, I just kind of, every time I have a few crystals left over, I put them in this little container, and I'm always thinking of different things I can do with them. And these are nuggets right here. These are gemstone nuggets. These are the ones that I used to make this style right here. So you can use nuggets, you can use crystals, you can use small beads. One thing I've learned is don't try to use big beads. It just, I don't know, it doesn't work very well. So it's funny, it's kind of like the small beads, tiny but mighty. So you got your crystals. A lot of times people don't notice the little finishing touches in the jewelry that I make, and so I always try to make sure I let you know that between every single one of these crystals, I am going to put a tiny spacer bead. And here's some of the little spacer beads that I like to use. They're little, just metal nuggets. And so if I'm using silver, I go with silver. Gold, I go with gold. Rose gold or copper, I go with these little rose gold ones. It just creates space and makes it look better. So all you have to do at this point is start stringing your beads. I always start with one of the little spacers and pop that on the metal first. And then I grab a little crystal and pop that on second. So my general pattern is spacer bead, small crystal, 3 to 4 millimeters, spacer bead, large crystal, 6 millimeters. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing here, and I'm just trying to find myself another gold spacer. There it is, like so. So I've started with my 4, added a spacer bead. Now I'm going to go with, see if I can find something sparkly. Yeah, there we go, a 6 millimeter. So you kind of keep going with that pattern all the way through this piece. So you go 4 millimeter, 6 millimeter, 4 millimeter, 6 millimeter, all the way to the end. But at the end, we're going to put 12 beads on each side. The last 2 beads are always 4 millimeter. So you're gonna go 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6, 4, 6. That's too many to add up, but when I get to the end, it's gonna go 4, 4. Make sense? Good. I don't know why, it just works better. And so there's another spacer, there's another crystal, and I like to make these multicolor. It's kind of fun to not look at the beads in your bin and just kind of let it happen. You can also do like these that I've done all the same color if you want to, if you want more of a kind of a different look, but the one we're gonna do today is gonna be super crazy multicolor. So once you get all the beads strung, and I have one done here, it's gonna be like one of those great baking shows. I'm gonna pull this away and all of a sudden it's gonna come in, they're all gonna be strung. Watch this, like that. Because I did prepare in advance, only dropped it once. and then just pop this back on here. So there's my size 8. There are all my beads. So you can see I have got all the beads strung. So started with the 4mm, went to the 6, 4, 6, 4, 6, all the way around like so, till the end where I've put 2 4mm beads, and there's a spacer between every single one. Same thing on this side. And just a bunch of multicolored fun ready to go. Now, the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna start making your cluster. And I like to start with finish one side and then add the other side. So you're just gonna wrap this around a couple times like so. Gonna bring one under the other and wrap it all the way around to the other side like that. Then I'm gonna pull this off. By the way, I will tell you, if you can see, I've got like a little squiggle at the end of my wire here. This will keep the other beads from falling off while you're doing side 1. Please do not forget to do this step because I did this morning and all my beads are now under my desk somewhere. I don't know where. I cannot see them. It's very dark down there. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull this off, and then I'm gonna take the extra wire, the extra 4mm wire, and wrap it around the shank of the ring. So we're just gonna wrap it one time around the shank. All right, and then you're gonna take the other side, and I like to put it back on the mandrel because it gives you a little bit more control. And we're going to wrap these beads around, and take your time working it, getting it to where you want it. Make sure you're happy with your cluster and the colors that come to the top. So, and then bring this down on the side and wrap it around one time. Now, at this point, your cluster might be like a little bit loose feeling, and if so, what you want to do is take these extra wires, and I always do this step. Clip off the end. Now that it's secured, you can kind of fool with it a little bit. And clip off these little ends that you made to hold everything on. And bring the wires in through the clusters a few times to secure them. So I'm just gonna bring this through. Let me show you what I mean too while I'm doing this. I'm just gonna pull one through and tighten that up. You can see on this how I've got kind of almost 4 bands, and you don't really notice them, but that's kind of what's keeping the cluster in place. So you want to do it 2 times around on each quadrant. So push that through, and this just holds everything together. If you don't do this step, it gets a little crazy. And if you have trouble grabbing your wire, you can use a chain nose plier. Just make sure you keep the 2 wires together. So that's one side. Let's do this side over here. Just push it through, and it'll find its way through. And pull tight. Push through, same place. And pull tight like so. And then this guy, looks like he wants to go to that side. This guy can go over here. All right, so then on the side, same thing, just push it through. Like I said, it'll find its way through. Just kind of make sure it's somewhere in that center spot and push it through again in the same spot. And one more. So I kind of think of the ring as like 4 segments as I do this. Yay, come on, baby. Last one's always the hardest. I don't know why. There it goes. And pull. And see how that one's kind of loose right there? What's going to happen is this is just going to kind of tighten that up and make that one bead that wasn't showing before kind of show on top, which I like. So one more time through and push it through Same spot to match. You kind of have to be, I always say, be the boss of your wire, or the wire will be the boss of you when you're doing this, just to make sure all those little wires kind of go in the same place and you're happy. I don't love one thing I've done on this particular ring, in that, see, I got two of the same color right next to each other on the top. But if you're doing this and you're paying a little bit more attention than what I just paid, and don't drop your ring on the floor right before you come out to show everybody how to do it, you'll make sure that those two beads don't match exactly. I just think it looks better when you have a better multi-color. So then I'm just gonna take that 24 gauge wire and wrap it around the side shank of the ring a couple times on each side, just to finish this off, like so. Check all your wires and trim the excess, and use just your chain nose plier to press in that last little piece of wire underneath the bottom. And voila, cluster ring. Pretty cool. So that's basically how you make a cluster ring, and let me just kind of go through all the tools and supplies so you guys make sure you have everything you need before you get started. First of all, we use some wire, 20 gauge and 24 gauge wire. I'm using just a gold plated wire to get that started. Then you're going to use some basic tools. We have a flush cutter and a chain nose plier, and I know you probably didn't see this, but I did use my round nose plier to make those little squiggles at the end of the wire so that the beads didn't fall off while I was working. And as far as beads are concerned, you're going to need either some pretty crystals or some nice nugget beads, and then some little spacer beads. And of course, the most important tool that I forgot to say, your ring mandrel. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys would like to pick up some supplies like the ones I worked with today, check out the links down below. What beads would you use in your cluster ring? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and ring that bell, and we'll see you again next time.